All right, so what we're going to do is go through a couple of loops. And the first loop in this online exercise I'm going to have you do is count down from 10 like you're going to launch a rocket. So in order to do this, we're going to want to print out the numbers. Now, here's the funny thing about this, is if I printed, for example, the number 10, and then I went down a line, and then I copied that, I could just set up a countdown like this. I could just do, let's see, if I'm down far enough. This is called hard coding, and it's not using a variable at all. And I haven't talked a lot about, or at all about, programming competitions. But I've had students submit work in programming competitions where they basically did exactly like it says the output needs to look like this. And rather than use a loop, they'll go ahead and actually set up something like this. So yeah, this isn't too bad if all I got to do is print out 10 numbers. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And then we want to say blast off. So look, I can do this without a loop. But the point here isn't to just do this. Let's just go ahead and make sure this works. And if we look at the output down below, and all I did is copy and paste, and I've got the countdown all the way to blast off. However, I want this done with a loop. So to do it with a loop, we need to set up, instead of an actual value here, we're going to put a variable. So could somebody give me the name of a variable that they think would be good to use for a countdown? I'm looking in public chat to see. Remember, a variable name should be short, describe its function, and not have any spaces in it. I like cdown. I like that a lot. And they use camel casing in it as well. So within main, I'm just going to work within main for these loops, and you can do that too. They don't have to be done in functions as an introduction. So what type of data for a whole number should I use? Should I use a Boolean? Should I use a float? What type of data should I use? Time would be another variable name. I'll wait for an answer here because I'm trying to make this more interactive based on some feedback. What type of data? Int. Perfect. An integer called cdown. Now, what value should I start at? What's the initial value that I'm going to be using for a countdown? You can use the mic if you want to. I'm going to set it at 10, and then to end my statement, I'm going to end with a semicolon. So on your side, remember, you can use Alt bracket to put me on one side and you on the other. And we should have, basically, we've initialized a variable called cdown for countdown to 10. Now we can use one of 3 different structures. Now, since I know I'm going to want to do this at least once, I could use a do while. So what I'm going to do, the process will be to add the word do, and then since I'm going to do multiple statements, I'm going to open up a curly brace, and you'll notice it automatically set up a closing curly brace. Now, what is it I want to do every time? So this is my initialization up here where I set up my sentinel value. So just for clarity, and this isn't required, but this sets up sentinel value, control value. So that's not required, but I want to document what I'm doing there. Within here, I need to, and first I'll add the comments, I need to print out what the value is. And the other thing I need to do is, do I want it to stay at 10 every time? No, I want to change my value. Now, outside of this, I need to say what the condition is. So while what is true? When would we stop doing this countdown? Could somebody type in chat or tell me what I should use for the while statement? I'd like to see somebody else type it in a line of code and see how close they get. I'll give you some options is what I'll do. See, 3 people are typing, so I'll give you guys a chance to do this. So what I want to put in here is what I'm looking for. Chris, I like there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, but I'm just going to tease you here, and I'm going to say I want my 0, my literal, to be on the left. Well, 0 is greater than C down. Now, what was typed in chat would work for sure. And I'm just going to put them next to each other so you can see the difference. While, oops, sorry. Well, C down, which is our variable name, is greater than equals 0. Sorry, I hit the wrong button there. I need to turn the lights back up a little bit. I can't see my hands. So the only difference here, they would work effectively the same, is that one has got the literal on the left, which is something that, I might seem overly fixated on, but I've been through enough programming debugging sessions where it's a logic error that I'm really stuck on it. Now, because we've got our while statement at the bottom, it does need to end with a semicolon. You could not use both of these, but you could use one or the other. I'm going to comment this out so it doesn't cause too much confusion. And a third workable example that showed up in the chat is someone put in the word while, which is all lowercase, perfect, and they've got C down. Sounds like somebody's initials, like Chris down, not equals 0. This one I'm going to comment out as well. That would work as well. Now here's another one that would work that uses a Boolean operator. You could say while it's not 0 is equal to, sorry, that should have been 0. C down. So each of these would work, but we should only have one of them down here. And I'm not trying to confuse you as much as I'm trying to show you that there's different styles and that people are going to have different ways of setting up a situation. They're all going to work. So the first one says, well, it's not 0 is equal to C down. Next one says, well, C down is not equal to 0. The other one says, well, C down is greater than or equal to 0. And the last one is, well, 0 is greater than C down. This will actually get into a -1 before it ends the way it's set up right now. So we need to make sure that we're doing the two things above it within the curly braces. So, well, 0. So you think that should be flipped? Let's try this and see what happens. So first thing we're going to do now, we're going to change one of our print statements. Should the greater than and the exclamation mark be so close to the equal? So the spacing here that people are talking about, the spacing is I don't believe it's going to make a difference in how it's going to run. I could have 5 spaces there. I could have 1 space there. The white space is for us. It's the spaces and down a line. Everything could be on one line with C++. It doesn't care. The going down a line is just for us for readability. Good questions. Very good questions. So I don't even mind if this logically is wrong because this is just an activity. You may have already done this. You might be ahead of me, but I'm entertaining all the questions, so it's okay. Now down here, below the while loop, I still have my countdown. I'm going to steal one of these lines because I'm lazy. I don't want to have to type this all out. I'm just going to say Control-C, and I'm going to paste that up here, which is one thing, is printed out. I'm going to move my big fat head out of the way. Now, instead of printing the same value out every time here, I need to say at this location, I'm going to print a number. We're not using cout, we're using printf, so it's going to be in the format of an integer. And then outside of the quotes, but inside of the parentheses, I need to put the name of my variable. So let's just try this version and see if this control structure would, you know what, I better make sure I get my change of value, because I'm going to have an endless loop if I don't. And since I'm not sure how to kill an endless loop in this, I should be able to just hit stop. All right, let's do this. I'm going to save this project, and I'll call it countdown sample 1, just so I've got it saved. And let's run this as an endless loop and see what happens, because I'm not changing the value. So I got 10 twice, which means that it's not going to repeat over and over again. And then came my next 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So let's see what I did wrong with my condition here. Well, 0 is greater than C down. Since I don't know what's going on in the values here, I'm going to click to the left of the 15. Have I shown you how to use debug yet? Have I shown you how to use debug yet? I've got a poll up there. Cool. If you didn't see it before, I'm going to run this in debug now. Now, when I run it in debug, it's a different button up at the top here. It says debug on it. See that? It's going to take a minute to get everything set up. If you're new to it, go through the guide. And I'm going to start by clicking on the word start here. But before I do, I want to move this up a little bit higher and this down. This little orange circle means when you get here, before you run that line, I want you to stop and let me look in memory. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. And now it says I'm at line 15, which matches. And I can see over here the value of C down is equal to 10. And so it's saying, well, 0 is greater than C down. Is 0 greater than 10? Nope. So we actually want to flip this to be a less than. And that was in the chat earlier. But I wanted to show you, if you do make a mistake, and that was a logic error, so I'm going to change this to the opposite. Oh, here's a reminder. I tried to change the code, and it let me know I'm still in debug. So I'm going to click on OK here to stop debug, and I'm going to use the button at the top that says stop. We'll need to use that again in a minute because I'm about to start an endless loop. All right, so I'm going to change this from greater than to less than. 0 will be less than 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, etc. But I'm not changing the value right now. If you look up here, you'll see change my value. I'm purposely not doing that step right now. What I expect is this is going to loop around and that value is not changed, and it's always going to be continuing to happen. So I'm going to run it in debug again. I've made a change, so it needs to get everything together and say, all right, I'm ready to run. So I'm going to start this, and I'm at line 15 the first time, and it's printed out the value 10, and I'm looking to see my value over here is 10. So I'm going to continue. It's continuing. It's continuing. It's continuing. And every time I hit that loop again, and if I look at my output here, I'm going to see 10 is printing every time because I haven't changed the value from 10. And if I ran this, I'm going to stop this now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my breakpoint and I'm going to run this. It might crash. I don't know. I'm going to run this without a breakpoint and watch what happens. I should see the number 10 show up repeatedly. And now I'm going to try to stop this program from just running endlessly. Hopefully I was able to stop it. Looks like I was. So that's more typical is you don't have a breakpoint and you're looking at your output and the screen is filling with 10s and you're left with wondering what's going on. So the part that's missing that needs to be put in here is something to actually change the value. And that change I'm going to put in here has to change the value of C down so it goes lower. Now again, there's more than one way to make a value go down. I'm going to put a couple of them in here. Into the value called C down, I'm going to store the value that was in C down, but I'm going to take away 1. This is a line of C++ code that says into this particular variable with the assignment operator. I'm going to put what was there, but I'm going to take one away. Now, I don't have to have parentheses around this, but for clarity, I want to make sure I draw this out to your attention. That's going to change the value, so it goes from 10 to 9. That will do it. I'm going to show you another way to do that. There is a way to change C down so that it gets lower by putting minus minus after it with a semicolon. This is another way to make a value go down. It's built into C++. It's not supported in C. It's a way of making things go down by 1. There's a third way to make something go down by 1, and that is to change the value C down so that we subtract and put back into the same spot by 1. Each of these so far is going to change the value so that it goes down by 1. Change my value, take away 1. I should just make that take away 1. Each of these is going to take away by 1. Now, I think there's a fourth way. I've got to think for a minute. There is one more way. This works as well. Is I can do minus minus C down. Now, the difference between line 12 here and line 10 is when it does the subtraction when it's in a compound operation. You can lower it by 1 first, which is what I'm doing on line 12, or you could lower that value after you've done the statement, like on line 10. So now from 10, I would do 9, 8, 7, and then 6. So I'm going to drop down by 4 values if I leave all 4 of these in, because each of them is going to take away 1. Just for fun, I'm going to run this version. It's not going to be a runaway loop anymore, but it's also not going to do what we want it to do, because built into this, I've got a demonstration of taking away 1 4 different ways. Is it all right if I go ahead and start this? So I got a public chat. Let me see where I'm at. Can I go back up a sec? Sure. Let me come back up here. Hopefully that wasn't too fast. I will do an update or a save on this, and I will make this code available to you offline. So we're starting at 10. We're printing out 10, and then we say 9, 8, 7, 6. So the next time around, we should say 6 because we're taking 4 away. I'm going to run this. The output down here is going to show us, now the second set is coming from the hard-coded. So it went from 10 to 6 to 2 to a value that was less than 0. And then this is the next part here. Now to separate out where these are coming from, I'd like to change it so that my part up here stands out and looks different than the hard-coded. Or I could comment out the next part. Either way is fine. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to add some text that says T, and then the number minus, and then the number. Actually say mission control, countdown, T minus, and then give the value. All right, so within the loop, this is going to repeat. I only want to use one of these to go down by 1. Doesn't matter which one it is. Probably the one, if I was coding, would be C down minus minus is probably the one I would use. But they all would work. We run this version before I make any other changes, just to show you the difference here. And I've got the top, which is countdown T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that's when I would want to say probably blast off. Now I don't see 0. Did they say 0? Does anybody remember?
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. The final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America
So apparently,
will continue
now that I've
the
done a
dream.
little bit of research here, they do say 0. So I got a question for you. How can I fix this so that it actually says 0 as well? And a hint is I need to change my while condition. Make it a -1 here, huh? So someone said they got 0. All right, so the way you set yours up got a 0. That's cool. I'm going to go back in here and make sure I've got my T-minus 0 in here now. Now, just because it looks weird to have a second countdown, I'm going to comment this part out so that it's no longer going to be an issue. And now I'm going to introduce something that I think is going to make your game your game experiences a little bit better. So far, we've been dealing with all text. Okay, I'm willing to look at your screen if you want to. But here I've got basically a blast off method that goes from 10 down to 0 and says blast off. But it would be more cool if we saw a rocket, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would. So how could we make a rocket show up in our printout on our screen? Still using just characters. Anybody have any ideas? Absolutely, an ASCII rocket. Yep. So because we're probably going to go down multiple lines, and I'll post this out as a resource. The only thing is you got to be careful because backslash and forward slash have special meanings in C++. So I'll give that to you as a heads up. But if I looked at here we go. So I think we have a Chris online right now, don't we? Yep, different Chris. So if I looked in here, I could actually search under categories. I could look for things that might actually be, let's see, under objects, furniture, people, plants, television, transportation, video games. I don't know what would be in here. Atomic Bomberman. There's all kinds of wild stuff in here. Pokemon even. Whoa. There's an ASCII art generator as well. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible, so I'm going to go back one, and I'm just going to say ASCII art rocket. Hey, Christian, that one's good, but it's got forward slashes and backslashes, and so that's going to look really weird in C++. So I'm going to look for one that doesn't have, there's some pretty cool looking rockets in here, right? Looking for one that actually isn't using a slash, and that's going to be like impossible because the cleanup on this is going to be pretty bizarre. This guy's actually got instructions on how to do something in ASCII. All right. I might as well go through an example and show you what I'm talking about with the slashes, because the slashes are going to be, here we go. This one's got less slashes. The person's got their initials in it. I'm just going to grab this one, and I'm going to put it into, I didn't need to leave there, back into my Google Chrome. Switch my tasks. Looking for my online GDB. Back in here, online GDB. There we go. So after the word blast off, in my source code, which is above, if I paste this ASCII text that I put in here, and I want to turn these into printf statements, I need to grab the beginning part here, Control C for that. And at the beginning of each of these lines, I want to put the printf part. And for a minute, this is going to be a little freaked out because it's thinking, you haven't really finished off your printf statement. At the other end, we're going to want to have this much of it. So on the other end here, and I'm going to tab over. I'll show you why in a minute. Paste these over here. Give myself some space. So I'm going to copy this with Control C and paste these. Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V. There we go. Now, there's my rocket, but you'll notice that in the midst here, it turns blue because it's got a backslash. Remember we use backslash for \n or \t for a tab? If you want it to show a backslash, it's like the first one says special character, and the next one says, nah, I'm just kidding. Actually, I do want a slash there. So backslash twice will give you the backslash once. So I'm going to replace each of these with 2, and then this should print out properly. Now what I'm hoping when I print this is I get a rocket at the bottom. So let me go ahead and try it. And my output should be down below. And there it is. There's my countdown, the word blast off. Doesn't quite line up here. Somebody else wrote this. Yeah, it might look better without that, but you know what? I'm going to give them credit. So I'll hit a space here. I think that'll line up better. And I'll run it again. And here's my output down below. And there's my countdown, along with the word blast off. Now, I don't have an actual second between each of those displays. We could add a wait command, but I would need to include another header file for time. I haven't done that in online GDB before, but I can do that. Let me see if I can just add the word wait in here. So wait is a command, and then I would tell it in milliseconds how long I want it to wait. And I need to know what include file. I think it's include time. So I'm going to do a hashtag include time. Hope that's the right one. I haven't done it in online GDB before. So I'm going to try this. I might get a compile error. Yep. It doesn't know what time is. So it might be a different header file, or I might need to say .h in this world. So let's try it this version. It doesn't know what wait is. So I'm going to be transparent here. I'm in a new development environment with online GDB. So I'm going to look for what is format of the wait command using time.h, C++. CTime. I don't see wait as an included function. Delay? There it is, delay. I think I want to drop in the word delay. Problem with knowing a lot of programming languages is sometimes you remember the wrong version. Let's try the word delay. And we only want to do 1 second, not a microsecond, apparently, in this syntax. So let's try it. Doesn't know what delay is. Doesn't know what wait is. I'm going to comment this out, and we'll deal with that in the future. Some of you might take some time and figure it out. That's fine. All right. I'm going to stop. I think I hit a saturation point right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this version. I'm going to save this first. Then I'm going to clean this version up so there's not a lot of extra stuff in it. So let me get rid of, for example, this include file, which we're not using. And I'm going to get rid of any of my commented lines here because they're not adding any value to you. They were good for our conversation. I don't want to confuse you. And get rid of all of these extra comments. There we go. So what do we get this down to in terms of number of lines? Got our do statement. We've got a print. We've got something to make the value go down. Line those up nicely. The condition, which makes the do statement end, and the word blast off. Then we got the rocket. So we're doing this from line 3 to line 11. So 8 lines of code. We got a little countdown timer. Now, what if we wanted to start this at 1,000? How much more coding would we need to do? If I can do it from 10 and like 8 lines, how hard would it be to count down from 1,000 now? Let's try this. What if we put in 2 more zeros? What if we run this version? If I scroll up, you'll see that I actually started. Didn't take much longer to run. By just changing one value, my code went from a countdown from 10 to a countdown from 1,000. Now, copying and pasting those 10 lines so that it then said 1,000 would be a lot more work to get in there and type those values every time. And so the looping is making it easier for you to do a task that will be repeated as many times as it needs to be done. That's the power of a loop. And that's why we're going to cover looping, so that you can actually have your games do something multiple times. I'm going to save this version if I can. See if I can do a save as. Let me do a, no, it saved it. It overwrote it. So the version with all those comments is gone. That's fine. But what I want you to do now is I want you, as an in-class activity, is to turn this into a do loop, a while loop, and a for loop. I'm not going to give this to you, but I'm going to show it to you. So if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss out the how to. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it 10 again. What I want to show you is how to set up a while loop that looks a lot like a do loop. So there we go. All I need to do is take this section of code right here from line 6 to line 10, and I'm going to make this a while loop instead. So I'm going to copy this with Control-C. I'm going to hit Enter. Do it afterwards. I'll do a paste. Now, all I want to do is take the while statement and move it up where the do statement is and get rid of that semicolon. Now I've basically gotten rid of that. Now the one up here is starting at 10, and this one's going to restart at 10. So maybe I want to print something in between just to make sure that I understand I'm getting into the next thing. So I'm just going to do a printf here to say, next is the while loop. Paste this up here. So just to make sure that everybody understands in the code what's going on, I'll say first up is the do loop. And the do still has the word while in it, so that could be confusing. Next is the while loop. So let me run this version to make sure I didn't break anything. Now I want to make sure you understand that this is going to come up with an error message. And I want to show you what the problem is here. Because I copied the Sentinel value being created called cdown already once, the second time it's going to say, wait a minute, you've already got that variable name. You can't set it up again. This is what it looks like as far as an error message goes. It says compilation error because you're doing what they call a redeclaration. You've already declared it, now you're redeclaring it. So what I'm going to do here is I want to make sure that I change this line of code so it no longer declares it. Just for clarity, I'm going to just comment out this part, the word int. So so that you see the difference between line 13, where I'm actually re-putting the value 10 in there, and line 5, where I'm saying build the holder and put a 10 in there. Now this version should compile and run, unless I made another error by mistake. I do have another error. Let's see what it is. I've got something's wrong with my left parenthesis before the word blast off. So I can actually see it's line 21, and it's got a problem. Blast off. Give me a second to process here. While this is that, don't want to have a semicolon, or do I? Do while, no, while should not. So while that's true, oh, I need to have an open parenthesis. Somehow I missed my open curly brace right there. While this is true, I'm going to do all this. So I was missing this character. When I commented out the semicolon, I got rid of that character. So let me put it back up here where it will make more sense for you and run this version. Sorry about that. That was just me commenting out part of a line and leaving part off. So now I'm going to see the countdown twice, controlled by different loops. And this is a demonstration. Here's the do loop, goes down to 0, and there's the while loop, which goes down to 0. So there's a third loop, which is the for loop. The for loop, it just so happens, is my favorite of all the loop types because everything's on one line. So first I need to say for loop, so everybody knows where we're coming from here, and I'll go down the line after that. Put a semicolon. Now here's a for loop. I type in the word for, and it's going to have 3 things inside of it. I have to set my initial value. So C down is going to be set to the value of 10 to start with. And then I put my condition in here, which is while -1 is less than C down. And the next thing is every time I go down there, I want to change the value of C down by 1. So all of the statements that I need are basically right there. I don't even need to have a set of curly braces because everything is basically in that control structure in one line. I don't have to look all over the place to find everything it's going to do. For loop has got the sentinel value being initialized, changed, and the control structure all on one line. It's actually 3 different statements. Now, you don't need to do this, and it wouldn't necessarily be the way that other people would do it, but it's actually got 3 different statements in it, all separated by semicolons. However, because programmers, not just me, do it this way, I'm going to put it the way you're going to see it. So now we're going to have 3 different countdown loops, all from 10, using 3 different structures. So I'm going to run this version, and we should see it count down 3 times and then say blast off. So there's the do loop, the while loop, and the for loop. Gavin saw my problem with the bracket. I wasn't looking at the chatter. He would have saved me some trouble, but we figured it out. Thank you. So now I'm going to give you the version that's got the 4 loops to start with. I'm sorry, not the 4 loops. The 1 loop. I've instructed you on how to make 2 more copies of it and change it, and that's your in-class activity to do 3 countdowns using 1 loop each. I'm going to stay online for questions. People can share their screen, and we can debug. But we need to shift over to that mode where you guys are doing the hands-on work now. So I'll post this link up to the Google Classroom for you, and I'll give you time to do it. Before I lose this, though, since I took some time on it, and I know what works here, I'm just going to copy this off and put it into a notepad for myself. Now, because I want you to be able to do the code yourself, I'm going to give you a starting point and ask you to copy and paste. Usually what I do in class is I give you an image file. But to help you, I'm giving you an actual C++ file. So I will share that with you now. I'm going to grab this with the share. I'll copy this code. And I will throw that out on our Google Classroom for you. Should already have an assignment started. There it is. I'll add the shortcut here. Now I'm also giving you another video on looping in case you don't want to replay mine. So a couple different resources for you. So you're going to do a countdown from 10. You can add a rocket to make it look cool. So pizzazz, we'll call it. All right, we're going to make this a 10-pointer because it's a daily activity and it's an in-class activity, so that's something you guys should get done today. And this is in C++ programming. All right, so that link is out there for the video. The video I just am making right now, I need to get that one stopped so I can post that out there as well.